and crypto is becoming the infrastructure.
Right.
And although everyone is talking about AI, but to be realistic, the infrastructure of AI payment is most likely crypto.
Right.
So the institutions, I think, are just building the rails, but they haven't really adopted. I mean, the biggest Bitcoin ETF is probably ByBit, BlackRock.
Yes.
It's only 0.5% of their overall AUM.
Right.
It's tiny.
Yes.
And the other day I was like, it would be nice to get to 5%. If it's 5%, then it's 10 times where we are. And after FTX failed, a lot of jurisdictions start to be quite nervous about crypto, and that's when UAE kind of took the opportunity to say, look, we're open, we want to support this industry. And then I think it was Binance and us who made the announcement first that we are moving our headquarters to UAE. I mean, this was all in the press release. Actually, one of the things the minister was very open about, so we want you to move your headquarters here. What it takes. We were like, well, we need visa support, we need this support,
That's
that
a
support.
very pro-business.
Exactly.
Welcome to Onchain Capital, where we talk about the future of finance, from AI innovation and crypto policies to the power shift between East and West. Today, I'm privileged to have Ben Zhou, the CEO of ByBit, with me today in Hong Kong. So, Ben, thank you very much for coming on the show.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure. Yeah.
So last time when we met, it was in Abu Dhabi. Obviously, things have changed quite a bit since the last few months. I do want to talk about the Middle East a bit, but before we dive into that, I want to go into a little bit about what you're seeing in the world of crypto today, or digital assets and more in general. Because I think the industry have really moved quite a bit from the past 5 years, right? Very crypto native, and then we went through a whole NFT, meme coin phase, and now it's about tokenized assets, tokenized bonds, securities. So the industry have moved quite a bit. So what are you seeing in the space today that really get you excited and really lead you towards the things that you are building in the company?
Yeah, so I think for me, generally describing the industry, I think the industry or crypto as a whole is graduating. Meaning that I think the first part where most people are talk about the speculative nature of crypto. Although it's still speculative, we still
it's
have
still
that.
Very much so.
But it's not the main focus anymore. And crypto is becoming the infrastructure.
Right.
And although everyone is talking about AI, but to be realistic, the infrastructure of AI payment is most likely crypto. What we've seen over the past, even last year, there are more and more countries releasing very much crypto-friendly framework to regulate as a financial industry. So sitting here with suits and tie, I'm really seeing that the industry is maturing, and it is a new technology revolution to what finance will be in the future, which is connected 24/7, borderless, and this is what I think a lot of even ByBit or most of the exchanges are building towards is a one financial app. It's because we're realizing with this technology and where the regulatory framework is heading towards, is for the first time in the world, there's opportunities, technology will unite everything. Because even today, value transfer, payments, financial sectors are still segregated. A client from Hong Kong faces different sets of financial choices compared to a client from Nigeria.
Yes.
Which will be, I think, even out. Just like how internet did to information, everyone's on the same playing field. I think 5 years down the road, with regulatory maturing, technology maturing, overall financial freedom will be matured and evened.
So you talk about the movement of money, right? Let's double click on that, right? So you mentioned Nigeria, Hong Kong, right? Some of these emerging markets. And the interesting thing about Nigeria is that obviously Nigeria is a massive exporter of energy, right? And coincidentally, one of the biggest buyer of that energy is in China. And a lot of those trades settles here in Hong Kong. Now, traditionally, that would be done through banking infrastructure, SWIFT, and everything else. Are you seeing some part of that flow potentially going onto the crypto rails as well?
What we've seen mostly is retail flow.
Okay.
If we specifically talk about Nigeria,
Yeah.
because they have a lot of people working outside of the country and working in the country, transferring money. For crypto exchange perspective, we see a lot of retail flow being transmitted through stablecoin. I think that's something already established. Now, Nigeria as a country is still forming its regulatory framework.
Yes.
Actually, in Africa, the most advanced is probably South Africa. And then we see, I think Uganda is coming up, and Congo is trying to release something crypto framework. But obviously Hong Kong is a lot more advanced in stablecoin, in crypto trends. So I think it needs to be both sides have the institution compliance framework ready to be able to do so. So, but if you look at probably Japan, Hong Kong, or US, Hong Kong, probably some of the institution money flow is already conducted through stablecoin and crypto rails. Yeah.
Even though these jurisdictions that you mentioned, the US, the Japan, Hong Kong, they're very established financial centers already. So you would think the need of actually going onto the crypto rails is probably lessened, right? Because there's so many different ways that you can interact through it. But you're also seeing crypto rails being used for those flows.
In reality, no matter how established it is, it's not 24/7.
24/7, right?
Yeah, and also if you wire money for institution, it takes 2 to 3 days. And for those 2 to 3 days, it's there's a lot of things can be done. A lot of opportunities can be conducted within 2 to 3 days. So what crypto offers is make it more efficient 24/7, so that if you do importing, you can actually take advantage of 2 to 3 days to do many other things, and even to leverage on FX flows, fluctuations, how to hedge it. So there's a lot of things happening underneath of that as well. Yeah.
So when we were chatting in Abu Dhabi before, you mentioned there's a whole payment tooling that the ByBit is already building under its portfolio. I also read that you are launching MyBank,
right?
Which is more of a real, like a neobank type of type of capabilities. So is that going into the direction where, as you mentioned, the Africas, the Latin Americas, where there's probably still massive unbanked population, and that's a segment that you're going after?
So actually, for the MyBank product, well, first of all, for the audience to understand, it's we give our clients basically IBAN the moment they open a ByBit account, and so it gives them a banking on and off ramp if they want to deposit crypto and they want to pay, let's say, to a car dealer to buy a car, and they don't accept crypto. Now all of a sudden you have your own bank account, you can transfer euros, US dollars to that dealer. But actually, what we've seen for most of the developing world where we are in India, Brazil, or the BRICS, clients are skipping the account opening part. They are jumping directly into crypto. So it's like how where you have mobile phone, people don't use the land phone anymore.
That's right.
So when you have a newer technology, people actually skip the middle part, and so they don't. So the MyBank product actually is not served to those clients, because when they go to a dealer, typically they already accept crypto, and it's easier for them to use crypto directly, and they don't need to go through this middleman or the TradFi traditional bank account anymore. But however, if they need to travel to Europe or they need to travel to where it's more established, they need a fiat transfer or in and off ramp solutions, and that's where the MyBank product comes useful.
So it's a particular segment that you're going after.
Correct.
Because I have talked to several guests on the show before. And there's the notion of trying to cover the 1.4 billion unbanked population around the world by giving them, for example, crypto credit cards and crypto wallets, essentially to bridge that gap, so to speak, right? They skip the bank account opening aspect. You're still opening an account, but just not a bank account. But what you're saying is the MyBank product isn't just covering that; it's also actually upscaling towards a point where it's interacting directly with the merchants.
Yeah, so we do see some demand for MyBank in those countries. But I the trend I see, I think 5 years down the road, people will skip that part, meaning that you talk about crypto card, that's a credit card.
Yes.
Typically rely on Master or Visa.
Yes.
But Master Visa adoption is not as high in, let's say, Nigeria or Brazil than compared to, let's say, EU. So actually giving client a MasterCard is not help their need.
Right.
But they already skip to, and when you go to Brazil, you see already restaurants, vendors, they use we use the QR payment. So we use ByBit Pay, and directly they can transfer crypto to a vendor, and the vendor already accept crypto. So what we've seen is this new wave of money is already being accepted, and that might completely leave the legacy system. And this also explains why the legacy system players, such as Master, such as Nasdaq, even TradFi players, are really coming onto crypto because they don't want to miss the boat, right? And they want to kind of hedge their bet a little bit because they also want to see this technology as changing things, just like how landline is being shifted to mobile phone and how internet is shifted the traditional.
So let's talk about that, right?
Yeah.
So you have crypto native players, right? Large platforms like ByBit that are now moving beyond just crypto trading, beyond the things that we've known for the last 10 years. You are now offering what I would call traditional financial services.
Correct.
At the same time, you have the traditional guys, right, that are now also trying to get into the crypto space. Now, in a sense, you can think about it as colliding, right? You've got two forces colliding. At the same time, you can also be creating opportunities for collaborations. Is that what you're seeing? Like, are you seeing more of a competitive stance when the MasterCards are buying BVNK, right? And Stripe is buying, Bridge. Like, one side is going this way, the other side is going this way. Do you see it as competitive? Or is it really more collaborative?
I think it's collaborative. And what used to be, again, segregated is now being all connected through this technology. So we see TradFi players, even regulators. The reason why last year alone there are, I think, 44% more VASPs being matured, meaning countries are starting to regulate crypto, the latest being Vietnam, and then you have other countries, is that they see this opportunity, first, is cannot be stopped when the people start using it because it's decentralized. Second is they see it as opportunity because regulated countries are competing. And if you look at capital market, it's really the US has the deepest capital market, where EU is a little bit lacking, right? Hong Kong is not bad, actually, right? But for EU regulators, why do they go so hard on crypto and MiCA and MiFID? Is because they see this technology will bring capital market to their already seeing, right? And also bring more audience when you talk about tokenization. When you tokenize a RWA, it means that previously it's hard to sell. Maybe they can now distribute to Brazil, India, or many places where they can't. So again, this technology simply is unifying everything, making everything available online, and that's what a lot of people see the opportunity. And that's when the TradFi players comes in. They say, look, it probably has more game to work with this player or work this industry than trying to kind of go against it.
So I had on my show earlier, a few episodes ago, Mark Greenberg from Kraken coming in to talk about the X stocks and also the launch of Payward, right? And there was this conversations about today a lot of the securities on their platform are primarily U.S. securities, but they are now looking across the board including also other regions, including potentially the reason why he was in Hong Kong. There are some talks about potentially some of the A shares and X shares Chinese stocks that are listed in Hong Kong. Are you also working into that direction as well, looking at assets that can now be brought on chain and be transacted onto ByBit, and potentially connecting that also into the banking systems through a lot of the payments and banking toolings that you have created?
Yeah, so we have around 2,000 banks connected globally, and also local liquidity. So you go to Indonesia, we have local currency to USDT liquidity pools. When you go to Thailand, we have the same. So to answer your question. I think tokenization is the next big thing, where, even with this cycle where it's a bearish, everyone's focusing more on tokenization because people do see the opportunity. Let's say you have Hong Kong stock or Hong Kong ETFs that are extremely popular. Now, we actually have clients, say from when I was in Argentina, a family office. Interesting story they shared to me is like, I want to use ByBit to de-risk. I was like, oh, okay, that's something new because typically people don't use crypto to de-risk, right? Typically they use crypto to go 100x. That's the kind of the typical stereotype. But no, they said because as a family office, they face the challenge of deploy capital and portfolio. They want to de-risk because most of their asset is sitting in that region, right? And for them to get a gold or ETF or a Hong Kong forex currency ETF or a Hong Kong stock or whatever, or even from Standard Chartered, from HSBC, it's harder, and it's much easier for them to get token. And then using that, and what they require is to see full transparency.
Yes.
If we are working with, let's see, a fund company here in Hong Kong, they want to see the papers. Yeah. They want to see how this RW is redeemed.
Yeah.
They want to test it. If they have the RW, can they redeem it? And as long as we can prove the whole process, given full transparency,
end-to-end, yes,
then they will deploy. And they say, well, we don't even want to deploy a Bitcoin. We just want to deploy stablecoin to these things. So we are actually de-risking our existing portfolio, and we're not touching crypto. We're just crypto as an infrastructure.
Interesting.
Yeah, right. So that's a classic example of how tokenization would help to distribute your asset globally, rather than the current pool of clients you're looking at.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's actually fascinating.
Yeah.
So if we double click on that a bit, right? Obviously, you've got the emerging developed market,
right.
Developing market. Yeah. And of course, you have the US, EU, Hong Kong, Japan, very developed markets. And I read in the news the other day that there's some conversations between Coinbase and ByBit in terms of the US market. Can you maybe comment on what you're thinking about in that regard?
Yeah. So for US, it's obviously a market that's been leading the way this whole cycle with Trump, right, being very open and pro crypto.
Yes.
And I think with
for a variety of different reasons.
Yeah. For number one, when Genius X was passed, it was no surprise for people in the industry, because stablecoin is really a pro US dollar domination thing, right? And there's no, so it doesn't surprise.
There's no hiding there.
Right.
Yes.
But now with clarity under the way, I think US is definitely somewhere we should consider and look into. So we've been looking into the US and see if we could find partners to do something there. So we're still exploring. And I mean, the news about Coinbase is because we are exploring ways to work together. So I can't comment too much on that.
Understand.
But we are also exploring other partners in the US to see. But so far, ByBit haven't made a commitment in the US yet. But definitely it's a place we want to explore, and we shouldn't be neglecting this market.
Okay, maybe we don't cover specifically around the partner that you're exploring, but I want to double click on one thing, right? If you look at the landscape in terms of where things are going in the US, from both a political standpoint and also policy, right? Because these two things are very tightly tied to each other. The Clarity Act has been debated on the House and in the Senate for many, many months. It looks like now it's becoming something that's close to hopefully being closure. But then the midterms are coming up, right? The entire political spectrum could be changing within the next 6 to 9 months. From that perspective, and as a leader in this industry, how do you see the US? Do you see it in continuing to push forward regardless of what happens over the next 9 months, 12 months from a political spectrum? Or do you actually see that being potentially a risk that you have to kind of measure in terms of where you go?
I think overall the Trump administration is definitely pro-business.
Yeah.
If you look at how many crypto-related companies went IPO under this administration, it's probably the number one administration that supported that.
Yes.
I was talking to someone from Goldman Sachs, and actually this year is potentially could be the largest year of M&A deals as well. So not only for crypto, but for TradFi sectors, even bankings, big mergers that's happening, right? And so everyone is kind of realizing the opportunity, the golden window. It's this administration is just get things done, right? So I think after midterm, probably things will shift a little bit because the House will change, the Senate will change, and it will slow down. But I would still think it's probably better than what's coming. Yeah. So I from what I'm talking to multiple players in the industry, regardless of what's going to happen in the midterm, I think people are still positive. Now, there is a concern that because Trump and his family is very embracive of crypto, there might be some things might happen after this administration, which is a legitimate concern. But everyone is riding on the wave for now. Let's see what's going to happen, down the road. Yeah.
when I was looking across the board, right, and actually this week we have a couple of episodes ago we had Sandy Cole from Franklin Templeton coming on, one of the world's largest asset managers, very U.S. centric, but global coverage, and her view was very similar, right? Her view was that the ship has already sailed, right? The institutions are on board. The institutions are looking at it as infrastructure, as you mentioned, rather than purely as an asset class. So her view is also it's going to keep moving forward. The policy may tweak here and there, but at the end of the day, the industry is moving in that direction. And once the U.S. starts moving, then Europe and the rest of the world is going to have to catch up, right? So we're being hopeful in that, being in the industry, but we'll have to see what happens there.
Yeah, but although I think clarity is the cornerstone, we really need clarity to pass to really start to see institution massive flow.
Right.
So the institutions I think are just building the rails, but they haven't really adopted. I mean, the biggest Bitcoin ETF is probably ByBit, BlackRock.
Yes.
It's only 0.5% of their overall AUM.
Right.
It's tiny.
Yes.
And the other day I was like, it would be nice to get to 5%. If it's 5%, then it's 10 times where we are. So I think we are still extremely early, although there are a lot of talks, a lot of things, but I'm pretty bullish on that.
You use the word early.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been saying we're early for 10 years.
Right.
Right? And we're still early, but I guess the definition of early now is different than before.
Yeah, no, it's different. I mean, now it's as a financial sector, we're early, I think.
I see.
As a financial infrastructure, right?
Okay.
And if you think company like Frank Templeton, like BlackRock should adopt Bitcoin or crypto as part of their portfolio, you're expecting about 5 to 10% of their portfolio distribution, but now we're like 0 point something.
Yes.
So that's in that sense we're still early compared to the trillions of dollars that's coming in.
But that'll take time, though, right?
It will take time.
Like it becoming 5% of a massive portfolio. That needs a lot of conviction. A lot of conviction. So we'll see when we get there.
Yeah.
So okay. So let's move off US a little bit, right? Let's go back to our last meeting, right, in Abu Dhabi. I think both of us have spent. You definitely and your team have spent a lot of time in the UAE, leveraging the very pro crypto, pro digital asset, very progressive policy kind of framework, both in terms of the free zones and also at the federal level. So you have worked with all of them.
Yes.
Right? Can you talk a little bit about what your experience has been in the UAE and how does that compare to other jurisdictions that you see?
Okay. What UAE made UAE stand out, and the initial wave of industry players who went there was 2021, I think.
Yes.
They reached out to all the big players. We were actually being reached out by the Minister of Foreign Trade. We were invited.
So you mean they reached out to the big players?
Yeah. So they reached out.
Amazing. Okay.
And it was Dubai at the time.
Yes.
And they reached out and said, look, we are trying to set up that's when Vara was first established.
Yeah.
And they want to make a statement that they are very pro crypto. At the time, actually, it's not long after FTX had fallen. It was a perfect timing. Again, how UAE picked the timing. Kind of the COVID that got them, where they are. And then after FTX fall, a lot of jurisdictions start to be quite nervous about crypto, and that's when UAE kind of took the opportunity to say, look, we're open. We want to support this industry. And then I think it was Binance and us who made the announcement first that we are moving our headquarters to UAE. And I mean, this was all in the press release. Actually, one of the things the minister was very open about is we want you to move your headquarters here. What it takes. We were like, well, we need visa support, we need this support.
That's a
support.
very pro-business.
Exactly. So it was very fresh of air for us as an industry. Because typically we have to ask for approvals to even go there.
Yes.
And they said, not only we want you to hear, we want you to make an announcement, we want to do a joint announcement, we want to make a press release. And then we did. And then gradually you start to see that UAE is really kind of becoming the hub of crypto since 2021. I think Vara, actually EDGM was much earlier on as a global regulator than Vara.
Right.
But Vara was much more, I think, pro-business, kind of welcome all the industry players. And then the model is very unique in the sense that the UAE started with economic zone first. So they start with ADGM, Vara, they test the water.
Yeah.
I think this is more like very much like China, how you have Pudong, you have Tianjin kind of economic zones. And after things are more mature, I think last year that's when the federal level start to release a crypto framework. And we were very lucky. We were the first one to get the ESCA license.
Yes.
And basically they have a rulebook they can use and reference to from Vera, from ADGM. And now gradually they can be more comfortable, know what they're doing. And I think it's a very good model if any country is considering, and actually a lot of regulator is looking into it. We know that we are quite engaged with Vietnam with the new license framework. We know that we even welcomed the Vietnamese delegate into the UAE and through the meetings we've seen. So a lot of regulators is looking at UAE, how they done it through economic zones first and then kind of gradually on the federal level. I think it's a very good model.
Yeah, I mean, including Pakistan.
Right.
I mean, they literally
P-Rara.
call their P-Rara, right?
Yeah,
so they're leveraging a lot of the experience that others have done.
Yeah.
I was talking to the regulators from Bhutan recently.
Oh, yeah.
And they signed an MOU with ADGM, right? So they're also leveraging some of the work that the UAE have already done.
Hong Kong signed MOU with federal level UAE.
Yes.
I think it's ESCA. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And NCB UAE actually.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's quite amazing. Okay, so I think we're coming to the end of the episode. So maybe one last question, right? So we look at the entire industry today. We talk about policies. We talk about different regions. We talk about the merging between traditional finance, payments, banking into crypto-based infrastructure and product. So all of these seems to be very progressive, and it's a positive momentum, despite the fact that we're in a bit of a downturn in terms of crypto prices, right, from a market perspective. If there's one fear that you have, that us as an industry moving forward over the next few years, what would that be?
One fear.
Yes.
Yeah, I think probably what's I think a lot of the things we've seen so far is how this industry is going to advance as a technological innovation front. One of the things we start to observe is I think crypto as a whole have innovated since 2021, but in a way we haven't really moved that much. If you look at last cycle, it's really all about meme coins.
Yes.
What came out was meme coins, decentralized derivatives, and maybe prediction markets.
Yes.
Are very much not innovation fronted, where it's more
it's still highly speculative.
Yeah, high speculative.
Yeah.
So I think, but I think with AI, there could be a lot of agentic wallet transactions, new innovation that come out. I do think that for crypto to be more adopted, needs to be more innovative things that come out of it, rather just than the speculative nature of the industry. Especially now we're becoming kind of the rails for infrastructure.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to see more innovation technology from coming out of here. Yeah.
So the fear, I guess, would be that when the market potentially recovers at some point, then the speculative the nature will come back and potentially overcome or overlap the true innovation that we need to have in driving financial services forward.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Ben, thank you for your insights. We covered quite a bit in the last 30 minutes.
Very good.
A lot of insights around the global landscape, policies, and your examples about the Argentina family office. I have to really think about that.
Okay.
It was really amazing.
Yeah.
So Ben, thank you so much. Really glad to see you in person. And I look forward to our next conversation.
All right, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.